Hello, I'm Dr. Carlo Carandang, and I'm a psychiatrist. Today, I will discuss the negative cycle of claustrophobia. Claustrophobia is the extreme fear of being trapped or confined to small spaces. So here's an example of a negative cycle of claustrophobia. So your trigger is that you see, hear, or think about being in small, closed, or confined spaces. So maybe you have a fear of being in a closet. So your trigger then would be seeing, hearing, or thinking about being in a closet, or worse yet, you might actually be in a closet. So this event then induces thoughts about the event. So when you're in the closet, you may think something bad's going to happen to you, or you may think you will not be able to cope, or you think that you're going to be harmed. So being in the closet, you might think that you may not be able to escape as you're trapped, and that no one can help you, and that you will be harmed. So these thoughts then induce anxiety. So the thoughts induces feelings of anxiety and fear, and then you get the physical effects of the anxiety from the release of adrenaline from your adrenal glands, and this culminates in the fight or flight response, where your heart rate increases, your breathing increases, you sweat, you get trembling. So this may lead to a full-on panic attack if you're actually confined to a closet. So the uncomfortable anxiety then leads to behaviors where you want to decrease the anxiety. So naturally you want to just avoid being in closets altogether. So you then change your behaviors in the future where you just avoid being in small and confined spaces. However, if you do find yourself confined to a small space, then you will then work to escape at all cost. However, the avoidance, while it decreases your anxiety over the short term, over the long term, the avoidant behaviors actually maintains the belief in the danger and direness of events, and this then maintains this negative cycle of claustrophobia, and it just goes on and on and on in a never-ending loop. And you see how the triggers are connected to the thoughts, are connected to the feelings, are connected to the behaviors, and they just feed one another in this ever continuing loop. So let's go through each one of these items of the negative cycle of claustrophobia. So let's say you have claustrophobia. So your triggers are that you see, hear, or think about being in small, closed, and confined spaces. And this event induces thoughts about the event. So again, you might think something bad's going to happen to you, or you might think you will not be able to cope. You might think you're going to be harmed. So you might think that you will be trapped, you might get hurt, and no one will help you. So these thoughts induces anxiety, fear, and you get the physical effects of the adrenaline response, also known as the fight or flight response. So the anxiety makes you avoid, and you avoid the feared object or situation at all costs. So you start to avoid being in situations where you are in confined or small spaces. And if you do find yourself in a situation where you are in a small and confined space, then you do all that you can to flee or escape, as being confined to one of those small spaces can induce a panic attack. And this is very uncomfortable, so you do whatever you can to either avoid at all costs, or if you do find yourself in that situation where you're in a small and confined space, that you flee or escape. So although the avoidant behaviors decrease your anxiety over the short term, the behaviors actually maintain your overall anxiety from being in small and confined spaces. So what happens is the avoidance, which is a natural reaction to anxiety, although it decreases your anxiety over the short term, the avoidance actually maintains the belief in the danger and direness of events. So it maintains your belief that being in small spaces will lead you to be trapped and that you will be harmed and will get no help. So that's what the avoidance maintains. It maintains that belief in the danger and direness of events. So therefore, this vicious negative cycle continues. The feared stimulus, which is small and confined spaces, induces thoughts, which then induces anxiety, which then compels you to avoid. So instead of just exposing yourself to the trigger, so instead of just being in small spaces, instead of just going into a closet and finding out that nothing bad will occur, you avoid closets, and this maintains your belief in the danger. So with avoidance, you never get to find out that the anxiety will go away naturally if you just stay in the closet. So with enough exposures, with enough times of being in the closet, you find that it's not bad after all, and then your anxiety then subsides naturally on its own. So the solution is CBT, also known as cognitive behavioral therapy. CBT helps to break the negative cycle of claustrophobia by changing how you think and what you do. So it's difficult to change the way you feel, so the focus is on changing the way you think and the way you do things. So for more information and help on claustrophobia and other anxiety problems, please visit AnxietyBoss.com. I'm Dr. Carlo Carandang. Thank you for listening.